On one hand, there is the build-up of expectations, how things will be. And on the other, there is the actual experience itself. We live through a prolonged period of anticipation and planning. But I think taking the time to seed and cultivate your forthcoming experiences can in fact be a potent source of joy, something that we often oversee.
Antarctica can really challenge your power of imagination. In some sense, there is an impossible barrier when it comes to visualizing the place. We are just incapable of forming images at scale. I don't think you can reasonably prepare your mind. The reality is not too far away from fantasy. These photo frames are not simply souvenirs for me. They're instead like a gateway, a medium through which I can recall a moment in the past and hopefully remember more of it. My name is Rinku Deuri. I am an educator by profession. Memories run deep in all of us, and there is some art to creating a collection of artifacts that can transport us back to a time and place in the past. I enjoy the process of giving shape to an idea and watching it come to completion. I think such levels of immersion is the key to creating stronger and more vivid memories.
Most of us live a busy life, and we tend to sway away from the conscious effort that is needed to nurture the moments that ultimately bring us happiness. My name is Shanti Chakraborty. I teach physics at a local college. I constantly find myself in situations where there's something more to get done. It never ends. Time just seems to disappear. The few chances I find to break free from the everyday mundane tasks, I treasure them. They give me comfort, they give me peace, they bring me happiness. Perhaps that's why the idea of seeing a new place has always been exciting for me. 3 more months, 2 more weeks, 1 more day, and free at last. At least for some time.
I like to think of traveling as a creative engagement. Each of us does it differently. I always create a mental model of the destinations I'll be visiting. That often means visualizing it in some form, some type of a map, mark places of interest, getting oriented, perhaps some street view as well. It's not perfect, but I'm trying to place myself at a location and get some bearings. You can call it an obsession, but it's my way of registering a forthcoming trip and accepting that I just signed up for more work.
Antarctica has been on my mind since one of our friends visited the place. It was fascinating to just learn that one can go there, but I had no clue how. After our Iceland trip in 2022, we started looking around for some information, and we found that there was an entire part of the web dedicated to it.
I wanted to ask you something about your trip.
There are detailed blogs on how to get to Antarctica. Most of these are from cruise operators. Turns out that a small cruise is the best way to get to the continent. There are limited but sufficient video logs from past visitors, and you get a good idea of the logistics involved. We also started reading a few travel books, just to get familiar with the destinations. It's not like there are big cities in Antarctica that one would know by name. We gave ourselves 16 more months to prepare, and we were finally going to Antarctica.
One of the interesting aspects of travel is this play between imagination and reality. I can visualize what the place would be like, but I'm unable to connect with it. We have had our own thrills during past travels, none of which I can describe in words, none of which I could have experienced without being physically in the moment. All creative pieces of work start with some imagination. You create something in your mind. These are broken parts, they are not vivid, and then you give them concrete form and shape. But often, what comes out as that real object has its own character. In a similar sense, the moment we decide to visit a new place, it sparks our imagination, but the real experience triggers its own set of emotions. Antarctica is so remote, so why? Antarctica's geography is indeed extreme. Starting from around 60 degrees south all the way to the South Pole, Antarctica is roughly 14 million square kilometers in size. About 98% of this area is covered with a thick ice sheet averaging 2200 meters in thickness. In some places, the ice sheet is more than 4 kilometers thick. Antarctica is technically a desert. It does not rain or snow a lot there, so the ice there is really old, maintained by extreme temperatures down to minus 60 degrees Celsius in winter. Wind speeds are typically moderate, but it is not unusual to see wind speeds going upwards of 150 kilometers per hour. It is unlike any other place on Earth, and given the chance, I definitely wanted to see it once.
There's also an implicit sense of adventure associated with going to Antarctica. Yes, you're on a cruise, but the very idea of going there puts you in this mindset of an explorer. What did the early explorers face on their way? What does the convergence of oceans look like? What would it be like to be surrounded by massive icebergs? See life flourish in an ice desert. There's just too much to be curious about. Antarctica is also not that much visited. In 2022-23, about 72,000 individuals landed ashore on Antarctica. There ought to be a sense of achievement that you feel when seeing places with visitor stats like that. I would take it as an invisible badge of achievement.
There is this travelogue itself. Photography is one of the primary reasons people travel to Antarctica. We are not professional filmmakers in any regard, but we're thinking of something feature length for some time. Why not start with Antarctica as the backdrop? If nothing, we have created a memorable record of our entire journey.
A picture can tell 1,000 words, but the sensations are missing. Antarctica is cold, dry, and it's surrounded by freezing water. It is as close as you can get to being on another planet. Everything sounds very grim and extreme. I'm not much of an outdoor person. I get cold quite easily, and I had not been on a boat for more than 2 hours. Frankly, I was thinking more about the cold than anything else.
Antarctica can be quite challenging to imagine. If you try to picture something massive, a mountain or the ocean, you will realize that you cannot go beyond a certain scale. It's as if you are looking at a miniature. I found this disruptive to my mental modeling process. There are no Google Street Views. The resources that you have to shape your imagination are pictures on the internet, books, documentaries, and maybe some depictions in movies. You can also read about experiences from others. You think you got it, you have a pretty good idea of what the place is like, but you still have that tunnel vision. It was actually quite difficult for me to grasp the scale of Antarctica. At the same time, it made it quite the more interesting. And the reality far exceeded our expectations. It was no less than being in a fantasy land.
We have now completed our boarding, and so you can use this time to familiarize yourself with the ship and get to enjoy all the beautiful areas here on board.
On December 22, 2023, we boarded the Sylvia Earle with 116 other passengers. This was our first time on a cruise ship. It felt like we had moved into an apartment, our home for the next 3 weeks.
Traveling from the United States, our first leg of travel was from Denver to Miami, where we had a night stop before making our way to Buenos Aires. We stayed for 2 days in the city, did some local sightseeing, and then headed towards Ushuaia at the southernmost tip of Argentina. After a day of rest and local tours, we started a 21-day cruise covering the Antarctic Peninsula, the South Georgia Island, and the town of Stanley in the Falkland Islands before returning back to Ushuaia.
ये जो दिखाई दे रहा है थोड़ा सेन उसका अटलांटिक ओशन इस तरफ तुम्हारा पैसिफिक ओशन यहाँ पर तुम्हारा अटलांटिक ओशन तो ये बीच वाला जो एरिया है इसको ड्रेक पैसेज बोलते हैं
तो हम ये कर लेंगे?
हाँ कर लेंगे
The Drake Passage is the most powerful convergence of oceans. It is 1,000 kilometers long, and the swells average around 3 to 4 meters. But if you encounter the so-called Drake Shake, these can become 9 to 12 meters high. We had no idea what that meant. We had our motion sickness patches on immediately after boarding, and also packed supplemental medications just in case. Fortunately, the swells were moderate during our crossing. It did occasionally feel like a roller coaster ride, but for the most part, it was a waiting game for us. You just have to calm yourself down and keep saying, "This will pass, this will pass." Crossing the Drake is often said to be the rite of passage to Antarctica.
Summer days are quite long in Antarctica. Besides a few hours of twilight, the sun is visible above the horizon at all times. Nevertheless, we follow the usual morning, afternoon, evening, and night schedule. A typical day at sea starts around 7 a.m. Expect to be greeted by fresh air and stretches of water. We had an hour and a half window to grab some breakfast before starting with the day's activities. If it is not a sea day, it would then be time to head out. Otherwise, the ship had ample means to keep everyone busy on board. A polar expedition ship is significantly smaller than a standard cruise ship, but most would feature a library, a lounge, a science center, a lecture hall, a dining hall, a mudroom, and an observation deck.
Lunch was served around noon. I would say our taste buds were well catered to. We would usually head out to an afternoon excursion after lunch, but on days of transit, there was much to learn inside the ship itself. You could explore the science center, attend an informative session delivered by the expedition team, browse through a nice picture book in the library, take a nap, or simply soak up the views. Evenings would be to unwind and mingle. We would also have a briefing to summarize the day and prepare for the next one. There was always a hum of excitement at this hour, which often carried over to the dinner table. There was not much of a night sky, so post-dinner we would be in our cabin taking notes of the day's events and checking our gear before heading off to bed.
Good morning. Good morning. A new day has come on board the Silja Air, and it's time to wake up.
Colorado, where we live, has some gorgeous mountains and peaks. The Rocky Mountain Range makes its way through western Colorado. There's no shortage of stunning views. You are always a short drive or a hike away from enjoying mountain landscapes, wide views of the terrain, mountain passes, gorges, and all of that in their winter snow-covered variant as well.
Much of what we had seen in terms of landscape had some vegetation around. They may not be evergreens, but when the seasons turn around, they are there. Antarctica's terrain is mostly glaciers, ice shelves, and icebergs surrounded by water. All mountains, valleys, and plains are hidden beneath the ice sheet. There are no trees. We were not quite sure what to expect in a place like that. No other place we had been to fits that description. Antarctica is shaped and reshaped by the ice that envelops it. Its story began millions of years ago with tiny snowflakes that seldom melted due to the cold conditions, but rather became compressed to form ice under the weight of years of accumulation. The process has been going on for so long that the ice spilled over the mountains to the edge of the continent, forming ice cliffs. When these peripheral ice sheets are sitting on top of rugged mountains, over time they slowly gravitate downhill to meet the Southern Ocean. Water contact weakens the sheets, breaking them apart into icebergs that then drift around with ocean currents and wind.
Given that there are ice movements happening all the time, landings in Antarctica are heavily dependent on the weather, the availability of a clear and safe path to firm grounds, and the conditions in and around the site.
We will go to another landing where I've been on some time ago, and we try to get to walk on a glacier.
I remember our walk on a glacier at Vega Island. It looked like a short walk from a distance, but once I was on it, it seemed to never end. What hits you deeply is a sheer feeling of being insignificant. Every formation just gets bigger and taller the closer you move in. We were also quite lucky to be able to get a first-hand look at A23A on our way to South Georgia. A23A is currently the world's biggest iceberg, measuring around 400 meters thick and around 4,000 square kilometers in area. That's about 3 times the size of New York City. It just went on and on till our eyes met the horizon. Took us quite a few hours of sailing before it was no longer visible. No one knows when A23A will possibly break apart. Even then, its size alone can impact ocean current dynamics and also the makeup of any landmass it comes in contact with.
Antarctica's landscape continues to be chiseled by the elements of nature. Its story will continue with new chapters and will certainly outlive us. It's really a story of time at proportions that are not comprehensible to us.
इनको ऐड करो तो
A trip to Antarctica means being organized, planning on time, and taking care of a lot of things before it starts. It can in fact be tiring and overwhelming to some degree.
इस पेनिनसुला 7 to 10 days और साउथ जॉर्जिया को इंक्लूड करेंगे तो 3 weeks तक हो सकता है।
उसमें 66 latitude cover होगा?
नहीं, उसमें नहीं होगा।
You will have to make your choice on a cruise operator and an itinerary, and also a room plan.
तो ये वाला रूम डेक 4 में
लेकिन ये थोड़ा बड़ा लग रहा है।
You get a polar packing list and make sure to cover everything in there. There's no store down the street in Antarctica. You pack according to the weather, which for Antarctica means thermal base layers, mid layers, insulation layers, layered gloves, hats, socks, and neckwear at the least.
You also have your usual travel-related chores: hotels, specialty dining, air tickets, airport transfers, travel insurance, medical forms, guided tours, connectivity, local currency, and transportation. You spend a lot of time on message boards as well. You have your photography equipment, which has to be compactly packed for air travel, but also so that it is easy to carry around in Antarctica. There are often elaborate check-in processes to be completed 2 to 3 months in advance. We were making purchases almost throughout the year. Keeping an eye out for deals can really save you some cash. Maybe think of a way to keep your family informed as well.
And of course, there's the budget. And as you do all of these, you read, 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 and read.
तुम कभी zodiac में चढ़े हो क्या?
Zodiacs are heavy-duty rubber inflatable boats featuring a buoyancy tube with independent chambers of pressurized air. They're lightweight but can carry 8 to 13 passengers and still be fast. In a polar expedition, they serve as the primary means of transportation from the ship to the shore. They're also the means to get you closer to the free-floating icebergs and the wildlife in open waters and pack ice. At first, they felt unsafe, but once we got used to the rocking of the ocean, we began to enjoy the rides. You see a totally different perspective from a Zodiac. It's a great vantage point to see the enormous scale of ice formations, watch marine wildlife, and also navigate into small bays and coves. Occasionally, we would just drift. The engine would be idle, and that's when we felt how alive the ocean surface is. It's in a constant state of motion. There is a never-ending ripple moving through the ice floes, bouncing the bigger chunks in and out of the water.
I will admit, I was a little scared in the beginning. But once I worked through my fears, the rides became quite fun. There are such beautiful views on and around the icebergs, partly due to the lack of air between the ice crystals making up these structures. What truly amazed me were the different shapes that these ice formations had taken over time. Some of them looked fragile, but then 90% of their mass is underwater. They are also constantly moving, which means rarely would you see the same structures as someone else did in the past. The entire experience is just ethereal.
When we told our friends that we are going to Antarctica, often the first comment was, "It will be cold." Antarctica can in fact get quite windy and cold.
कितना कलर वेरिएशंस है एकदम -60 से 0 तक.
We packed accordingly, but the general experience is that summertime is quite manageable, especially if you are from a place with occasional sub-zero temperatures. Just for our records, we took a temperature logger with us.
December, January are in the Antarctic summer months. Inside the ship, it's warm and comfortable. There is a slight chill if you're out on the deck, but if the wind is mild, it is quite refreshing and moderately warm clothing is sufficient. It's when you go out on a shore excursion or a Zodiac cruise, you put on all the layers. Even though the temperatures were not very low, we were outside for 2 to 3 hours at a stretch. We made sure to be fully packed from head to toe. It's more of a precaution since the weather can change in a matter of a few minutes. The surface temperature during our landings hovered around 2 degrees Celsius, but it would get quite chilly when the wind picked up. For most people, this means extreme winter-like temperatures. But for Antarctica, this is summer. And summer in Antarctica means high season for the wildlife there. wildlife in Antarctica are all in their natural habitat. You can find 9 species of penguins in the Antarctic and the subantarctic islands, including the emperors, a near-threatened species, Adelie penguins spread all around the Antarctic coastline, chin straps due to their prominent black stripe running along their chin, gentoos, the fastest swimmers among all penguins, and the macaronis with their colorful plumes. There's also about 6 species of seals to be found. The southern elephant seal weighing up to 4 tons, the Antarctic fur seal which almost became extinct in the 19th century, the crab-eater seal which by the way do not eat crabs, and the Weddell seal. And then there are whales in the southern waters, around 8 species. The orca or the killer whale. They are the largest species in the dolphin family. The minke whale, they are the most abundant of the baleen whales in the southern ocean. The finback or razorback whale, they visit Antarctica in the summers. And the humpback whale, some of which annually travel between Central America and the Antarctic Peninsula, covering more than 5,000 miles one way. We expected to see some of these in real, but just learning about them before the trip was fascinating.
One day, they'll take the launch.
And they're the habitat for Antarctic's surprisingly abundant wildlife.
Here are some fun facts I learned. Penguins walk the way they do because their center of mass is off when they stand. Albatrosses have special glands to expel the salt from seawater. Crab-eater seals have specially adapted teeth to filter krill from water. The bumps we see on a humpback whale are in fact hair follicles. I have not seen much wildlife before in close proximity. I do remember seeing a puffin colony in Iceland, and the experience of being surrounded by them was magical.
दिखने में तो काफी क्यूट है लेकिन स्मेली होंगे।
Antarctica hosts one of the most productive ecosystems on our planet. The interior of the continent is too cold for life to survive, but the outer islands and surrounding waters sustain a delicately balanced food web. The keystone species in this web is krill, which are consumed by fish, squid, penguins, seals, and whales alike. Of course, the web is much more complex with multiple predator-prey relationships.
If you are going to Antarctica, penguins are perhaps a must-see in your list. Well, you cannot fail to notice them. They are everywhere, totally disregarding your presence. They strike me as clumsy creatures on land due to their limited agility. They stumble and fall all the time. But this does not stop them from taking a stroll around or climbing some seriously steep terrain. You can watch them for hours. There's something always going on.
Many of the penguin species in Antarctica can also be found in other easily accessible places, but nothing can beat the variety and volume of the wildlife found in the South Georgia island. This is where we also saw the king penguin colonies. Of course, you can smell them way before you see them. The slightly warmer climate of the island makes it an ideal place for permanent settlement, not just for penguins, but for seals and birds too. It's a wildlife haven. When the party is at this scale, it will be noisy, it will be smelly, and there will be outsiders.
If you find penguins to be clumsy, then seals will strike as lazy animals. When seals are not underwater, they are actually resting or molting, except for the fur seals, which are quite territorial. They share the land, but a slight incursion from a neighbor and a fight ensues. Our Zodiac excursions put us in the center of all of this action. Wide panoramic overviews as well as closer viewing from a respectful distance. It is truly phenomenal to see all of these creatures coexist in this manner, go on with their daily routines while being mindful of each other's boundaries. There's chaos and harmony converging into a pleasant symphony. Antarctica is their home, and it echoes everywhere without doubt.
The rusty ruins of Great Viken in South Georgia are a reminder of how human exploitation of the Antarctic waters led to a significant decline of the whale population there in the 1960s. This settlement was a prominent base for global whaling operations for over 6 decades, which finally closed down in 1966. But now, 6 decades later, the numbers are still nowhere near those in the pre-whaling days. The station is mostly of tourism interest these days, housing a church, a post office, a museum, and a historic cemetery. It was indeed a long wait. We just kept ourselves busy, learned more about the place, and let those expectations build. Before we knew, it was time to pack our bags.
No two Antarctic expeditions are the same. The path you sail in this voyage is yours. It takes shape uniquely from one moment to the other. We experienced some of the wildest oceans, saw some of the most breathtaking wonders that nature can create, and witnessed life flourish even in the most extreme habitats. Yet, they are unlikely to present themselves the same way ever again.
21 days is a long time, long enough to work through your anxieties about the place. There was a time when we were nervous and anxious, then we were awestruck, but finally it became a place we fell in love with. Everywhere we looked, everything we heard, everything we smelled, our senses were constantly stimulated, and it never got boring. Despite being a long time, I could not help but think that all of this is happening in a transient bubble. For many of us, this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but our senses will only be able to recover remnants of these sights and sounds, if at all. It is a depressing thought, but one I have wandered into many times.
Perhaps the idea is not to think of it merely as a place you go to and come back. Antarctica makes you live the idea of a journey being more important than the destination. All the time you spend preparing for it, all the time you spend learning more about the continent, the time you spend waiting for it to happen, they really add up to a unique journey. We were happy and excited on numerous occasions, on those small steps that were taking us closer to the destination.
It is not a secret that when you anticipate a good outcome tomorrow, you become a better person today. Every day you would take a few positive steps just so that the anticipated outcome becomes real. To think back, it's not just about what we saw in Antarctica, but also the experiences we had on the way. The planning, the travel, the stops on the way, Buenos Aires, Ushuaia, and even the 2-day cruise just to get a first glimpse. They were all part of the experience. The visual details, the vividness of what we saw, They will fade with time, but the quality of the time we spend carries a strong emotional significance. I believe it will be this connection that will last longer in my mind.
Life experiences cannot be complete without people. It's really the care and intelligence of the crew that shaped our Antarctic experience and gave us something to hold on to for a long time. No matter how long your expedition is, you will come back with stronger ties to the people you met and the stories you shared more than anything else.
How was your dinner?
Everyone has a story about how they came to be in this place and what they are taking back. Yet, no matter what narrative we use to tell our stories, all of them will share a common theme, that of patience and that of fulfillment.
After days of waiting, we had finally arrived at Antarctica's doorstep. There was something magical about that moment. It was excitement, energy, suspense, anxiety, a whole bunch of emotions at the same time. It really came as an afterthought that we were sailing farther and farther away from civilization. We now know that every tiny bit of those emotions had some reason to be there.
An Antarctic expedition is a collective experience, but it leaves a unique impression on each person. From the time we board the ship, through the excitement of our first view, to all the excursions we undertake, we are all in the same euphoric state of mind.
Wow. Oh, look at that.
Yet everyone carries back a distinct set of memories, their own personal records of the sights and sounds, their own personal evolution against the backdrop of Antarctica.
Antarctica's lasting imprint on me will be more than its sheer grandeur. I never thought I would spend Christmas, New Year, and our wedding anniversary in a remote place, with a group of new acquaintances. This voyage will have a special place for all who undertook it, and I have now become part of something special for some people whom I did not even know 4 weeks back.
Antarctica took shape for us in our imagination. It took us on a gratifying journey of anticipation and then let us live a reality far beyond our expectations. There can really be no true depiction of its sublime views. At times, Antarctica felt otherworldly, yet there was an innate connection reminding us that it is ours. Every passing moment was another bead stitched to a beautiful chain of memories, the only thing we can bring back with us. Time will tell which memories of our voyage will break down as we age, but for now, Antarctica is a fresh blossom in our hearts. This was our expedition to Antarctica.